Oh, welcome. Hi, my name is Dr. P. Dominique Padurano, and I'll be talking about how we can help our kids tame anxiety. There may be more people kind of coming in, but for now, I want to get started. Thank you guys for coming. Let me just find a little bit about you, the students. What grade are you in?
Six.
6? 10? 6?
11.
Okay, good. So I like it. We have a big range. How many of you feel stressed out? He's like, no, you're cool as a cucumber. My mom just dragged me here. How about you? No, you don't feel stressed out? No? Okay, well, anyway. Part of the reason I created this talk is because I was a teacher, a classroom teacher for over 10 years, and I've been working with families one-on-one, doing tutoring and giving talks like these. And in the very short time that I have been a teacher, I have noticed anxiety increasing among students. And since not very short, I started teaching in 1997, and I definitely find students are way more anxious now than they used to be. And it's not just me who's seeing this. This has also been observed by some people who say this is the most anxious generation. And part of it is because of these cell phones. Right now, don't worry, you're not on video, but I am. I'm live streaming this on Facebook because people are constantly checking their phones, but I don't think it's just that. And I'm not going to really talk about the causes of why students are anxious. But if you would like a great book about not just anxiety per se, but more about this generation, and it's written by a teacher / parent. It was a New York Times bestseller. Her name is Jessica Lahey, and the book is called The Gift of Failure. And she actually advocates that we should kind of let our children fail more often, which sounds counterintuitive, but this big stress on everybody's got to be perfect in order to get into college, which is a real myth, can do a lot to ratchet up that anxiety. And by the way, anything that you either don't get or need a question of, you see I have some brochures out here. You can email everything. I also have our big resources page on my website, so you should feel free to check that out as well. So just a little bit about the agenda. I'll talk, but it's a really small group, so I'm happy to take questions during, or if you'd like, to ask me questions later, and then I'll stick around after the talk if you want to ask me questions one-on-one, okay? So let's just talk a little bit about stress and anxiety. And I think when people see good stress, they think, well, there is no such thing, but there actually is good stress. I mean, a little bit of stress can get us up in the morning, can get us to finish our homework, can get us to do our work, right? So we need a little bit of stress. The problem is when that stress becomes too big. And I also happen to be a yoga teacher on the side, and so I know a little bit about the physiological symptoms of stress. So forgive the very mini biology lesson. I'm actually a trained historian, so it's going to be very short. The sympathetic nervous system is the fight or flight response. When our ancestors needed to run away from a saber-toothed tiger, it would divert blood away from our inner organs and to our arms so we could fight it, or to our legs so we could run away from it, okay? That has existed for centuries, millennia, but now our stressors are no longer the saber-toothed tiger, they're the SAT. When we don't need all this blood going away from our inner organs to our arms and legs, we need to remain calm. And so the parasympathetic nervous system is the system that can calm that response, can bring down the heart rate, can stop the sweaty palms. But in order to be able to do that, you kind of need to know how to do that. So at the very end of tonight's talk, I'm going to share some breathing techniques with you, and so we'll do some of that. Okay. So I also recommend some. These are kind of tried and true. And yoga is great. You don't necessarily have to go to a yoga studio. You can go on YouTube for free. You can go there's classes on TV you can get. And I love, there's a lot of great apps. I'm only going to recommend the free ones because I think that's only fair. I myself even use an app called Insight Timer, INSIGHT, and it's literally got tens of thousands of guided meditations that are anywhere from 30 seconds to an hour. That'll do anything from build self-esteem to help you fall asleep at night. So I really love that app and encourage you to explore it. Ideally, they say meditation, the classic is you should meditate 20 minutes twice a day. Most of us don't have time to do anything for 40 minutes a day, so except for work or go to school. So I say start small. Even if you can think about your breathing and do some of these things for a minute or two at a time, it'll be great for you. So, how many students here tend to just say, if I don't think about my assignment, it will go away? Anybody? No? So you all start your assignments the day the teacher hands out that paper or puts it up on Google Classroom, and you're done with your long-term projects way before they're due. Okay, we have one
I spread them out.
You spread them out? Well, that's great.
So I can do one at a time.
That's great. How I'm sorry, there's so few people, I think I couldn't probably learn your name. What's your name?
Ewan.
Ewan? Emily? Adriana and? Andrew. Okay, so Emily, how about you? You never ignore your assignments? No? Adriana? Andrew? No. All right, well, so maybe we can just go through this part very quickly then. So I personally think that time management and goal setting are key to taming your anxiety, because if you can get a good handle on when your work is due and what you're doing, that is really paramount for you. You'll notice that I've put out on every other chair an index card with a pen. So parents, you can actually do this too. It's really intended mostly for the students, but, and yeah, feel free to go in the second row and get them. What I'd like you to write now is I'd like you to think about your goals. I'm going to have you write 3 goals and skip 2 lines in between each one. Okay, your first goal I want you to write is your goal for this workshop. And then you're going to skip 2 lines. Your second goal is going to be the goal for the rest of this month. And then the third goal is going to be the goal for the rest of the time that you're at the school you're at now, whether it's high school or middle school. Okay? So just think about that for a second. And parents, you could do the same, but instead of school, you might just say maybe for the next year or something like that, or for the rest of 2019. Okay? And I'll give you a couple minutes to do that. Hey, everybody on Facebook Live. You need them all?
Do you want SMART goals or do you want
SMART goals? Oh, you're way ahead, sir.
It's because
You could be teaching this.
because you can do that for work.
Let's just say a goal. This is goal setting 101. Okay, they don't have to be SMART. They just have to be a goal. So remember to skip 2 lines in between each goal. So the 2 months who aren't writing, why do you think I had them skip lines in between each goal?
You don't have to worry about like the spacing.
I'm sorry, could you speak a little louder? I still can't hear you.
You don't have to have stress about the spacing.
No, it's not for that. No, but good try. Any other guesses?
Just to put more information.
I am going to have you write something else in between there. Can anybody guess what I might ask you to put in between there?
A goal that you set and just go for it.
It has something to do with that going for it.
Give yourself a timeline to get that.
Timeline would be great, but an action plan would be even better. So what we're going to do is in between each goal, we're going to talk about what do you need to do to achieve each of those goals. So I'd like you to write at least one concrete thing that'll make you just go for it. Okay?
Like a task, right?
A task, exactly. How you doing? The year-long goal is hard. Okay, it's okay. It's harder the younger you are to do. How about you, Andrew? Nada? All right. Well, this is food for thought. You know, if this is difficult, if goal setting is difficult, it's probably difficult because you, come on in. Sir, come on. Upset.
You gotta get
Okay, no worries. The other half of the family is, yeah, no worries. If goal setting is difficult, it should be. Most of us don't do it more than once a year, and usually we call those New Year's resolutions. And how many of you set New Year's resolutions this year? Ready? Usually by February, the New Year's resolution is long forgotten, right? Like gym memberships are huge. Gyms are super crowded in January. And then like by Valentine's Day, they're empty again, right? Because, no, it's true. As a person who goes to the gym all year long, I've seen it year after year. So most of us are like that, right? We think about our goals once a year, and then most of us don't follow through on it. And I know that this is a talk on taming anxiety, but I really believe that our goals, and I'm not going to ask you what they are because they're for each individual to keep for themselves. I do, though, think that much of our anxiety, and I didn't kind of coach you on what your goals could or should be. I didn't say they have to be academic. I didn't say they could be fun. Like, someone could have had a goal. I would like to climb Mount Washington this summer. That's a goal, right? Some of our life goals are also what fulfill us. And when we feel fulfilled, that's when we don't get so anxious, right? But if we kind of see life passing us by and all we're doing is work, and students, all you're doing is homework, and you never have any fun, well then that's another reason why you could get anxious. So you can put, if this was difficult for you, that's okay. Think about this, go home, you still have your little index card, you could fill it in at home, but think about having a balanced goals list. And that's one way to make yourself sort of less anxious, okay? I recommend that once you set those goals, you keep the card somewhere you can see it, either during our talk and then when you get home, keep it either, I put my own goals list in my bathroom mirror, so I see it twice a day when I'm brushing my teeth. If you've got a lot of kids in the house, maybe there's going to be too many cards in the mirror. But what I always tell students is you can take a picture of your goals and your action list and put it on your screensaver on your phone. So you're seeing it every time. And part of the reason I advocate doing that is unless you see those goals, it's going to be very difficult for you to sometimes sacrifice something you want to do, play Fortnite for 5 hours, versus something that you may have to do, finish your social studies report, okay? But again, having that balanced goals list is key to keeping the anxiety at bay. So, again, the students are saying that they get all their work in on time. I'm thinking that if the parents maybe took you here, maybe that might not always be the case. So this would be for the kids who are either stressed out themselves or stressing their families out because maybe they're doing things last minute, okay? So one thing you want to do is you want to write your to-do list down, and I mean physically on a notepad, just as a list. And you want to include due dates for any of your assignments. It could be short-term. For instance, tomorrow's homework is due, second period. And then they can also be weekly due dates, monthly due dates, and even yearly due dates. And the years especially for example, if you have that big goal, I want to climb Mount Washington or whatever it is, that's going to be a yearly goal, you want to write those down, okay? Once you have your goals written down, and obviously the daily one is going to change every day, the weekly one's going to change every week, the monthly one's going to change every month, and the yearly one will stay for the whole year. Okay, once you've done that, if you can break a big task, like climbing a mountain, down into several smaller tasks, it's going to stress you out less. Because it's going to seem, say we'll take an academic thing, like writing, used to be a social studies history teacher. Writing a history paper, research paper can seem very overwhelming. But if I break that down into, I have to research, then I have to take notes, bless you, then I have to make an outline, then I write, then I revise, well, all of a sudden, each of those individual goals doesn't seem so overwhelming, okay? So for example, let's say we have one 11th grader here. He may be taking AP US History. If I just say I have to study for the AP US History exam on May 10th, and that seems so overwhelming because I've never done that before, I can get stressed out. But maybe it's just, okay, I'm gonna come up with a plan. I'm going to review Unit 1 this weekend, Unit 2 next weekend, Unit 3 the weekend after, and so on and so forth. And then I'm going to take a practice exam on April 13th, and then I'm going to review the wrong answers of my weak areas on the next day. Anybody notice anything in common about my sort of breaking the tasks down and my list? It's measurable, good.
Over time.
It's spaced out over time, and it's also super specific. I say the exact day. Now, if I was really, I don't want to soup, this gets people maybe a little bit more stressed out than they need to be, but I may say, study from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. on March 9th. And then I block that off on my calendar, okay? So that rather than this huge thing of studying for an AP exam, it's just this Saturday for 3 hours. And I'm gonna do that, I'm just doing one thing at a time, okay? That'll help you kind of get control over that anxiety. Next thing I recommend is put all your tasks on a single calendar. I work one-on-one with students, and I happen to be working with a student who's at college right now, and I'm helping her kind of get a handle on her schoolwork at college. And I said, you need to go through your syllabi. A syllabus is like a list of all your assignments for people in middle and high school here. And usually they're online now. Like when the parents and I went to college, we got, back in the Stone Ages, no, they didn't hand us stone tablets. They handed us photocopies. And that was actually easier because at least we had something tangible to hold. Now the students, if they're not printing them out, they constantly have to go online for each class website. And this student doesn't know when a lot of things are due. And so what I recommended to her, and I recommend to you now as 6th, 11th, 10th, whatever graders you are, is get used to scheduling all your tasks on one calendar. So you're not going back and forth trying to figure them all out, okay? I prefer a paper desk calendar, that old school one that's like a desk plotter where you tear off the month by month, right? And use pencil because you may need to erase. And then you might want to use, if you're a visual learner, you might want to use different colors for different subjects, like maybe history is going to be purple and math will be blue or something like that. And don't forget, yes?
The high school, actually middle school, they give them a planner. Every September, they have a planner. It has every month in it, every day in it, so they write everything down. So it's from 6th grade to 12th grade.
That's great. Do the students use it?
Every day.
I love
the
that.
homework in it, but when your test is due, quizzes, correct? I don't know if anybody is from the school district, but
It's my experience as working with a lot of kids in a lot of different school districts is that often planners are handed out and often they're never used. Because the teachers now use different online learning platforms.
That's been a
Yes,
big issue
yeah.
this year. That was a change.
Because they
Where in
don't
the
always
past,
tell
they
us,
had the
too.
planners, but now the things are just online, and I know that's been a big issue.
They don't always even
A
tell
lot
us
of
the
people have
projects.
planners, but now they use like Google Slides for homework.
Right, and so Google Classroom for K-12 seems to be the biggest online platform. And that's basically, it's a great tool because I get it that the students ostensibly have all their work in one place. The problem becomes when, especially in the transition, teachers don't always post them very early, and sometimes they're posting them quite late. And so students don't actually know what their homework is until quite late. This is just my experience of working with a lot of different families. I cast no aspersions on any school district or any teacher, but I think the most reliable way to keep track of your homework is to physically write it down. I last taught at my last full-time teaching job was at Scarsdale High School, and I ended there in 2012. And in 2012, a lot of students were, 2014. 2014, students were taking pictures of their homework, right? That's another thing they'll do. I don't like that because then you have all these photos. You probably haven't deleted them. You don't know what day they are, okay? It's just a mess. If students are using the planner, I love that, okay? But I also don't think the daily or weekly planner will cut it. I think they need to have all of their assignments on a monthly calendar so that they're all together, so that they can see, oh, March 16th, I have 3 tests that day. Oh, well, maybe I should start studying this weekend, March 9th and 10th, so that I'm not up until 2 in the morning on March, 15th or whatever it is, because I find that when students aren't writing them down in one place and they're separate, that's when they get into trouble. And we're going to talk, my last slide is about sleep, because I think the biggest way to combat anxiety is by getting enough sleep. And the biggest enemy of getting enough sleep is not knowing what's due when, and then staying up until 2, 3, 4 in the morning, which I have had students do. Any other comments on that, or? So I do say that, if you're studying or doing homework, that's great, but you shouldn't work more than 50 minutes at a time. I like to do the 5-to-1 ratio of for every 5 minutes you work, take a 1-minute break. Now, little kids, that'll be it. They'll, 5 minutes, they can't really work more than 5 minutes at a time. Generally, students in middle to early high school should be able to work 25 minutes with a 5-minute break, excluding any kind of ADD or ADHD issues, okay? By the time you're in 11th grade, hopefully you're up to the 50-10, but don't go over the 50-10 one without a break, okay? And remember, yes?
Is that 50-10 and does that go for adults too? Like in terms of like if you have a work assignment, a project that you're working on, should you take the maximum of 50 minutes and then?
I mean, it depends on how much your company is aligned with this philosophy. I think for adults, it is effective, and we'll talk about what your break might consist of in a little bit. I personally like the physical break, like getting up and walking around or doing something physical, as opposed to, a lot of students, what do you think the number one break they want to take is? Their phone, video games, and I don't find that to be, that actually induces anxiety, a lot of those things. And while we're working, we want to have less anxiety. But yeah, I think it's effective for adults as well. But if you have it's funny, back in the, 80s, 70s, people would have cigarette breaks, right? And that would be their 10-minute break, right? Now, luckily, thank goodness, not so much, but we've done away with the break, and we all need to disengage from our work a little bit. So maybe we could even make it healthy. So I think you need to schedule in your fun and social time, and I will be the first to admit I am actually not very good at this. As a business owner, and I'm also an adjunct professor, I work a lot. Luckily, I love what I do, so it is fun for me in a way, but it's still work. And I do think we need to do, I love to salsa dance. I really need to start schedule salsa dancing on my calendar so that I can have more fun. Because unless we have fun, we can't approach our work with a renewed vigor and a fresh eye. Also for students, adolescence is a time when students are normally much more engaged in their peer group than in their family or with adults. And so they need time to be with their friends. A lot of times parents are anxious about that because they feel that the kids are too much with their friends. I totally get that, and again, there needs to be a balance. But there should be some time with their friends, and I think that you can scheduling time with friends also gives you something to work towards, right? You don't want to dangle it over their head, like if you work for 3 hours, then you can go out on Friday night. I would try not to do it that way, but if you're trying to kind of maintain this balanced lifestyle, and fun and social time is part of that. Now, downtime is different than fun and social time. Downtime is relaxing time, and we also need to schedule that in if we're not doing enough of that. And I say kind of make that a priority, or be mindful about what your downtime is. Listening to music, watching TV, and video games are okay for downtime. And I'm saying they're okay because I know a lot of students love them, and that's what they want to do. But I would keep them under 1 hour. I personally think that downtime could be exercise time. You should try to, and we'll talk about exercise in a second, but it should be somewhere where downtime should be something that you're not working, but that you're giving your brain a chance to not work either. When you're doing video games, your brain is actually working, and you're in. I mean, sometimes you're literally in that fight or flight response in your video game, and so you want to kind of not have that and do something that's more relaxing. So I think for any teen that's struggling with anxiety, and oftentimes the counter of anxiety is depression, exercise is a great first place to start. You know, of course, if it's really bad, I would also, of course, say that you need to see a therapist as well. I would never say don't do that. But a great place to kind of maintain good mental health is by exercising. It increases your mood, increases your endorphins, and believe it or not, it gives you more energy so that you can then work longer. So I'm a big proponent of exercise. These things can also overlap. So for example, if you love playing basketball with your friends, that might be your fun time, your exercise, and your downtime all rolled into one, right? So you want to think about these things as you're putting them on the calendar. Downtime is also a good time to connect with nature, and nature has this natural kind of relaxing effect on us. So maybe if you're not a basketball player, maybe you want to go for a walk with a friend and just chat. I happen to like that. I'm not a basketball player, so I go for walks with friends, and that's a really nice time for me to just kind of relax and be outside. And I always find I'm so much more productive after one of those walks. So I mentioned the last slide would be sleep. I'm a real big believer in, and studies show that, you know, those of us who don't get the right amount of sleep are much more prone to depression and anxiety. And before I put up like the next little slide, anybody know how many hours of sleep approximately, more or less, 11 to 14-year-olds need?
9.
Studies, believe it or not, show that the average is like 9.25, but it could be as little as 8 or as much as 10.5. It's the most sleep we'll need, other than when, you know, we were like preschool and toddlers and taking big naps, because our bodies are changing a lot during adolescence, and our brains are also changing. And so if we don't get the requisite numbers of sleep, we're less effective. I mean, even adults who don't need as much sleep, there are studies that show that, and forgive me, I forget how much sleep deprived you have to be, but there are studies that show that being a certain number of hours sleep deprived is like driving drunk if you were to get into a car. And so it's really dangerous. The effects of sleep deprivation are really dangerous for adults as well as for adolescents. I could do a whole talk on sleep, but I'm mindful of the time and you want to get some tonight, so I won't. But I will just say that if you Google proper sleep hygiene, you can get, actually I did this just today. I was updating this PowerPoint and I came up with like the sleepfoundation.org. There are certain practices, you know, keeping a cool room, going to bed the same time every night, all those kinds of things that are really important in case you're not familiar with them. And I think like anything, to kind of come full circle and go back to our little cards that we did, if you feel that taming anxiety is something that is really important to you, I think committing to good sleep also should be important. And I'm a big believer in the more you can get all of these things, from time management to sleep, under your belt as high school students or middle school students, the better off you're going to be at college. Because at college, and again, I work with college students through FaceTime one-on-one. I mean, I see kids up until 5 in the morning, and then they miss class, and they're exhausted, and then they get sick, and then they're not able to do their work. It becomes this avalanche of bad consequences. So, it is possible to go to college. I can tell you, I went through 4 years of college and only did one all-nighter. And I happen to have gone to Harvard, which some people think is a pretty hard school. So it is possible to even go to very good schools and not do all-nighters. You just have to plan. And I know that I was always a kid who, I needed my sleep. I'm an adult who needs my 8 hours, and I really believe in it fully for children especially. So before we go to, well, you know what, let me ask if anybody has any questions, and then I'll kind of do some breathing exercises with you. Any questions or comments about anything that I talked about?
Do you have any suggestions in terms of disconnecting, like for example, for adults in terms of work, disconnecting from work, and kind of that's a big challenge.
It is a big challenge, and it's funny because I almost think our children could sometimes be better teachers of that, because they have no problem not doing work a lot of times. So I have to admit, I'm better with the, kind of modeling for the kids what they need to be doing. But I would just say the same thing, make it a priority. So if disconnecting from work is important to you, then schedule that in. For instance, I also love to paint. I haven't painted since high school. I just said, you know what? I'm going to take an oil painting class, because this is something that I need for my own well-being, my own mental health, to stay happy and fulfilled. Because I could work 16 hours a day if you let me, right? So, I mean, a business owner, I think, will always tell you that there's something more to be done. But at a certain point, you have to be happy too. And if you're not happy, for instance, it's going to, what if I came up here and I was like, y'all got to be less anxious, I have to be, I'm a naturally happy person, and I want to share that with people. But if I stop doing things I love, I won't be. So I think to be the best you, the best parent, the best worker, it's important. Yeah. Other questions, comments? All right, so anybody want to learn some breathing exercises?
Sure.
Okay, I'm going to sit for this because I'm going to model for you how you might want to do it in a chair. Now, that's not to say that you can't do these in bed too. And I actually often tell the students I work with privately, especially because teenagers usually have a hard time falling asleep, but once they're asleep, whereas adults, we can fall asleep quickly, but then we might get up and not be able to fall back. So this is for any time you can't fall asleep. You can do this lying down. But for now, you might want to think about it on your 10-minute break from work, when you're not doing your homework, or even, I know this sounds crazy, if you have a quiet minute in school, you have a free period, you feel yourself getting stressed out, go to the library. Find a space, and nobody needs to know that you're doing this, because you don't need to even do it with your eyes closed. You might want to, but you can literally just sit there and just look down at the desk. And now you think that people are going to look at you. Nobody's looking at you. They're looking at themselves, okay? So what I do recommend, though, is to kind of sit up nice and straight. So you're going to kind of push your butt all the way to the edge of the chair and have your feet planted firmly on the ground in front of you, kind of hip-width distance apart. And you can place your hands on your lap. And if you'd like, you can close your eyes, but you don't need to. So, Emily, put your feet like this. Yeah, there you go. There you go. And that just kind of keeps us grounded rather than, if we're like fiddling with our feet, we can't really think about our breathing. So you're going to imagine that you curling your tailbone down into the chair and your head is floating up towards the sky. So you're creating a lot of nice space in your chest cavity for air to go in. And now I invite you to close your eyes and you can begin to deepen your breath. Just take a nice, big, long inhale through your nose. And then feel the air come out through your nose. On this next inhale, with your mind's eye, watch your belly come open, hang open. And on your exhale, watch your belly go back towards your spine. Again, nice big inhale through the nose as the belly hangs open. Nice long exhale through the nose. So once you get in touch with your breath, you may want to think about counting your inhale and exhale. And we'll do this for a count. We'll hold our inhale, we'll count our inhale for 4, and we'll exhale for 6. Ready, inhale, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Last time. Inhale, 3, 4. Last time. Exhale, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I invite you to open your eyes. How do you feel? Good, right? Yeah. So just simple. I mean, obviously, if you can do that for longer, then, we probably did it for a minute or two. Minute or two, you will get benefits, of course. If you could do it for 5, that's great. The biggest, I think, worry that people, and ironically, people who try to be mindful breathing, or some may call it meditation, are usually doing so to not be anxious. But then they get anxious when they think, oh, I'm not thinking about my breath anymore. My mind has wandered, right? That is, I want to assure you, that's completely normal. Meditators or Buddhists or whatever, they call it the monkey mind, right? And our mind swings like a monkey from thought to thought to thought. And that's okay. At some point, you're going to swing back to, oh, I'm here, I'm breathing. Let me start counting my breath again. So just don't worry at all if you lose count of your breath. And that's the way I would start. There's many other methods which you could find in Insight Meditation, Insight Timer, for focusing on your breath. The biggest way I would counsel a group of beginners, and especially adolescents, is merely counting. The one thing you want to do is try to make your exhale be longer than your inhale. So you notice we inhaled for 4, and we exhaled for 6. Some students I've had who have been swimmers could inhale for 4 and exhale for 16, believe it or not, because their lung capacity was so amazing. But whenever you can extend that exhale longer than the inhale, that parasympathetic nervous system kicks back in. And it calms brings your blood pressure down. And it's the opposite of the fight or flight response, which, if you think about it, right, even when we go jogging, jogging, right, is like our inhale is very long compared to the exhale because we got to get all that oxygen to go fight that saber-toothed tiger again, right? But now we want to do the opposite. We want to extend the exhale. So even 4 and 6, perfect. Okay. You know, I didn't send around a sign-in sheet. So while I do last questions, if you could put your name and email there, but no questions about anything? Anything that you thought that the workshop was going to be on that I didn't cover?
Well, what does the anxiety go with racing of the heart? Your heart start racing before the anxiety.
Yeah, that's that. The heart racing is all part of that fight. So what I would say is that if you know that about yourself, or other people might be public speaking, like what I'm doing now, would send some people into a panic attack. What I would say is, there's 2 things you could do. One, you could visualize yourself getting the test, speaking in public, whatever it is that causes you that anxiety. Visualize it before it happens and then do that breathing exercise, right? That's the first step. Then when you're actually in the situation, before the teacher hands out the test, before you have to get up in front of the crowd, do that breathing exercise, okay? There's one other thing that I think is good for right before, and there's also a TED Talk by a woman named Amy Cuddy, who teaches at Harvard Business School, who has done a lot of research into sort of body language. And she's a woman who has done research on what happens when we stand like this for 2 minutes. And if you watch Grey's Anatomy, there's actually Grey's Anatomy where before they do a big surgery, the surgeons do this. And that is because this is a power pose. Anything where our arms and legs are wide actually sends signals to our body of confidence, calm, we could do this, okay? So, they often say that, for instance, these are like more quote unquote manly or masculine stances, right? They say, I live in New York City, on New York City on the subway, someone who's sitting like that is usually a man. That is also a very confident pose that you can, do that in order to combat the anxiety too. I think it's a nice balance with the breathing. Sure. Any other things that you wanted me to cover or that you thought the talk would be on that I didn't cover?
What about,
Thank you, Andrew.
I have a question.
Sure.
I'll ask this to myself, but
Sure.
dealing with frustration in terms of developing coping skills for children and for adults. I can't do it, I cannot do it. That getting in that negative feeling and getting out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So ironically, that book that I mentioned before, The Gift of Failure, Jessica Leahy really recommends, letting our kids fail. I mean, part of the problem of, everybody gets the medal for participating in that kind of thing is that, when students sometimes get into quote unquote real life and do experience failure, they are so bowled over by it because they've never experienced failure at an early age, right? And I don't think we should, throw them into a pool not knowing how to swim or do something like that, where, which they used to do back in the old days. However, I just did a Facebook Live series last week with 4 moms, and we were talking about how to develop self-love among your students. Because I have a blog, and every month it's a different theme, and last month Valentine's Day was about love and self-love among kids. And this mom, her name's Michelle Gold, she said, if my kids don't know how to do their homework, I don't help them. I don't get them tutors, which, of course, I'm a tutor. So, it was funny that she said that, but I say, bravo to her. Because she says the teacher needs to know that my son doesn't know how to do that. And it will be a sign to the teacher that something's wrong. So I would say 2 things. One, the communication, and of course this has to be repeated over and over and over again, that failure is a normal part of life, that we are not always going to succeed is really important. And I say this as I've coined the term a recovering perfectionist. I was a total perfectionist as a kid. It did really well for certain things, like getting me into Harvard, right? But it also made me super anxious, which is why as a 40-year-old, I became a yoga teacher, because I knew I had to give control over this anxiety that I also had of needing to feel perfect. And ironically, being a business owner where you try some things, they don't work. You try something else, they don't work. I wished I had been more like that as a kid, because I do think that's a healthy way to go about life. You look at somebody like Thomas Edison. He failed so many times. We only think of, he invented the light bulb, he invented the phonograph. He invented a lot of stuff that didn't work. I think the more we can show our kids through our own example of us failing, like maybe there's something that you always wanted to do yourself that you might not be very good at, right? Like for me, it might be, I don't know, I can't even run anymore because my knees, but let's just take the example of, I want to run a marathon, right? Let's say, I'm the slowest runner on earth. And so if I wanted to run a marathon, it would take me a lot of training, a lot of time, and maybe I might not be able to do it. But to communicate that the process is worth going through anyway to kids, I think is important. And then of course when they do fail, being there to kind of cheer them on. And I think the other side of this, which is, hurts me, as a person, I see, a lot of times when parents are so invested in their kids' success that, I've been present to some, tough words between parent and child. And sometimes the kid wasn't living up to his potential, but sometimes he was, and that was the best he could do. So I think also being really attuned to when your child has given it her all, and she failed anyway, and saying, you know what, that's okay. You tried your hardest, that's okay. And knowing when, hey, you know what, you really didn't try your hardest, and I know you can do better, and I think you guys know your kids the best of all, right? But even me as a tutor, when I come in, like I'm tutoring this boy for SAT now. He got an amazing score in his practice test. He got a 1550, which is 50 points away from perfect. But his essay, I said, look, so-and-so, it's a great score, but it's just a good essay. It's good, but it's not 1550 good. And I want you to write an essay that's worth the 1550. So, I think you have to balance praise with a little kick in the tuchus sometimes. Any questions from the students? No? Did this talk make you more anxious or less? Yeah, I have to say, I mean, I don't envy kids today. I do think it's really tough. You know, after my Facebook Live thing last week, you know, I got a comment from somebody who, you know, it was a really long comment and I haven't really read it and had time to respond to it yet, but it was basically, you know, kids, I think he ended the talk with kids today are damaged. I don't think kids today are damaged. I think our parents thought that about us when, you know, I was listening to the B-52s and had my big bouffant hairdo like Kate and, you know, and I mean, I think every and their parents probably thought that about them when they were listening to Elvis instead of, you know, Tommy Dorsey. So, I mean, every generation has its own thing. And, you know, all I need to say is, I'll tell you, I watched this movie on Netflix, so I'm going to leave you with. This will get out the Kleenex. The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind. Anybody hear about this kid?
Heard of the book, but I don't know the story.
And I gotta go see his TED Talk now. He also wrote a book. This 14-year-old boy. So, and is anyone here 14? No? How old are you? 15?
12.
Okay, so this will give you two something to aspire to. Imagine this. 14 years old, this boy in Malawi, which is in Southeast Africa. His family is on the verge of starvation because they're going through a major drought, and sometimes they have too much rain, sometimes they don't have enough. He goes to his school library, gets out a book, Using Energy, that has a windmill on it. And he convinces his father, Dad, and his father didn't want to, you let me chop up your bike. I can create a dynamo where I can build a windmill that will harness power, make electricity, so we can have water all year round, so we can have two seasons instead of one. He saved his entire village. He got a scholarship to go to school in the city in Africa. Then he got a scholarship to go to college at Dartmouth College. He got a BA in environmental sciences, has his own TED Talk. Now he has a movie about him. And it all started when he was 14 years old. So when, you know, talk about anxiety, man. If I think my family is going to starve to death, okay? So not to diminish anybody else's sense of anxiety, but I thought that was so amazing of the power of young people, and also just, I mean, such a testament to kids today aren't damaged. They're just different than us. And it's a great thing. And they're gonna, like this kid, William, they're gonna save the world. You guys gotta save the world, okay? We're counting on you.
Or like a terrible flood.
Or burn up.
True.
Not to be, you know, a pessimist or anything. Not to make you guys more anxious. but yeah, I mean, this generation is very creative, I think. And we as parents and educators need to learn how to harness their power, just like William harnessed the wind, right? So I think you guys have the raw talent. All right, thank you so much. Thank you. And thank you guys for watching on Facebook Live. I'm so sorry my phone fell. Thanks, Roja and Lori and Trisha. I'm going to end now. Thanks. Bye.